Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. So in today's message, I want to share with you some thoughts on freedom and specifically with regards to the spiritual lens, okay? So like spiritual freedom. And so, it's funny because I feel like had this been a topic brought up maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I was going to say 5, but maybe a little bit further than that now, I probably would have just thought, I don't even know where this conversation's going, but it feels very irrelevant and kind of new agey, and I would have just brushed it off and not had any interest whatsoever, right? But after experiences in life that make us feel imprisoned with invisible bars, to a point where it's hard, first of all, for us to even grasp intellectually and make sense of, but second of all, to even be able to define and articulate clearly to others. When you go through experiences like that, where you wind up realizing the limits of logic and how just pure language alone fails you to be sufficient to explain things. When you go through things like that, a lot of us, that's when we really, if you already had religious or spiritual beliefs, you really start to go deep into those and grow your roots during this time. And I imagine if you didn't have any kind of spiritual beliefs prior to experiences that made you feel this way, you probably started looking for some answers, some supernatural answers. And so that's really the inspiration for the message today. Just that, those of us who have really been through some trying times that have been looking for answers, you get to a stage in your healing where you're stabilized emotionally, like you're good in that area, but you just really want to continue to refine your discernment. And so that's why I want to talk to you about freedom versus spiritual imprisonment. So again, I hope you're doing well today, and I hope you enjoyed the message. So let's open with a Bible verse. I'm going to share with you Galatians chapter 5 verse 1. It says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." I feel like sometimes when you just, you're a young Christian, for example, and this message is hopefully going to be beneficial to everyone, even if you're not a spiritual or religious person, even if, I do share Bible quotes if you're new to my channel, but I try to just always encourage you to just get the wheels turning in your mind. I just try to prompt some good thought processes for my audience, and that's really all I hope to do, so that you can find your own truth, right? So even though I quote from the Bible and I share a lot of things from my lens, my own beliefs, I'm hoping that you can take that and get something from it, that it can spark some new thoughts and pull together some new puzzle pieces for you, no matter what your beliefs are. So I just want to say that. But it's I feel like when you're a young Christian, as an example, and you're reading this Bible verse, for example, and you're trying to wrap your mind around the parables and the symbolism and metaphors and what this means, a yoke of slavery, with regards to the context here. And a lot of times, this is from my personal experience, a lot of these kind of things right here don't make sense until you experience them. It's kind of like, you can read this stuff and have a base understanding and think you understand, but it's just kind of like seeds that are planted in your mind that are not meant to sprout and therefore grow and produce fruit that will nourish you until the appointed time, until you have already gone through certain experiences in your life where you need, it's like now you need it, and then at that point It's like all these seeds turn into keys of understanding for you, and in that regard, they're comforting for you, and they're enlightening, and they grow you, and they expand your mind. And so a lot of times I just wanted to encourage you, if you're reading things like this, and you feel like you should have an understanding, and you may even be surrounded by people who claim they understand, but and may think they do, but I truly think that there are layers of understanding, and so yes. So spiritual imprisonment is essentially a state of being very out of balance, very confined, in such a way that it's hard to put your finger on, in such a way that it's not obvious to yourself or especially others. And so it's a very lonely place to be. And when you're suffering in this way, it's especially hard because you don't usually have a support system. Again, because others can't see what you see. They're not experiencing what you're experiencing. You're questioning your own sanity. As a logical person, I think when you are a healthy logical person, if you can't find logic to explain your situation, it's natural to be like, well, is something wrong with my mind? That's just kind of normal to do that. And it may be this point in your life when you first seek out a therapist, and that's a good thing if it's a good therapist. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of therapists who lead people astray and keep people stuck in a victimhood loop, things like that. So I just really encourage you to be very selective and careful with who you choose to be a part of your guidance in your life. I just want to say that. But they can be great, if you find the right one, I'm sure. So, when we talk about spiritual imprisonment, it's about bondage and control of not only your free will, but of your mind in a lot of different aspects, okay? So it's kind of like, this is another piece too. It's like the whole time you were imprisoned, unconsciously, like feeling like something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it. It's like we actually had what I like to call freedom fighters working for us, but we didn't recognize them as such, right? And what were the freedom fighters? It was our emotions. It was our emotions. But because we didn't know this, okay, it's like our ignorance was exploited, and we were even shamed for having emotions. So it's like they're trying so hard. It's like this higher wisdom at work within us, trying to come out some way or another. If there's a blockage in our mind, if another person or group or whatever it is has a grip, this dominating, controlling grip on our minds, then we're not going to be able to logically perceive what's going on. But there's this higher intelligence always working up here, okay, that's looking out for our best interest. And so it's going to try to break through and wake you up some way or another. And a lot of times it's through our emotions. But because it's like that whole, there's several verses in the Bible that talk about, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And then, of course, wisdom is the principal thing. With all you're getting, get understanding. So understanding is crucial. And when you don't have it, and you're just, feeling all these emotions, and you're on top of that, you're not understanding it, but on top of it, you're being shamed for those emotions, it's just adding to that trauma. All this is just serving the people who are benefiting from our ignorance and our trust. But there probably came a point when you were spiritually oppressed, whatever your situation was, okay, where you felt like you had to take this fighting stance. I don't mean physically, I just mean like internally, like it's almost like it just felt so unjust and unfair somehow, your situation. And it's almost like you just felt like you had to fight for your right to just exist, and just to think, just to all these things. You could just fill in the blank. Probably fill up, a quarter of a whole journal just on that one topic. But it got me to thinking about this this song, and I don't even know all the lyrics, but it's this old song, and it says, you got to fight for your right to party. I don't know, it just came to me, and I thought, all right, it came to me for a reason, so I'm gonna go with it. Okay, so I looked up the etymology of party, right, as a verb, and I thought this was really interesting. And of course, it kind of makes sense if you think about it, right? I understand this is not the context that was intended, or maybe it was, in this song lyric, but from the 1630s, party meant to take the side of. Okay, so I want to interject here where in the Bible Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So another definition of party as a noun from the online etymology dictionary is a detached part of a larger body or company, again from the same era, 1640s. So 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 27 says, "Now ye are the body of Christ, and members in particular." So I thought, okay, this totally makes sense now why this song, that particular line, that lyric came to my mind, because that's exactly what it felt like. We had to fight for our right to be a part of truth, to stand on truth, okay? Because here's the thing. Again, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Christ is the truth, which is so heavy. We could take that one statement and just run with it and make a long video talking about it. Maybe we will one day. But Christ is the truth, okay? When we are kept ignorant by someone we trust, or people, if it's a group, or a group, whatever it is that we trust, when we are kept ignorant on purpose, with all the tactics, gaslighting, partial truths, or complete omissions, denial, projection, etc., it boils down to this: the fact that there is a war on truth, okay? And I know a lot of times you hear people talk about this, especially like on YouTube and all, with regards to politics and things like that. But if you think about it, considering the whole concept of a war on truth, where did this originate? The Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden, right? It began with the first humans. So it's that old, it's that original, okay? And so what we have to come to the realization of is this: you've been a soldier in the war on truth for quite some time, possibly your whole life, and you didn't even know it. You didn't even know it, okay? And it's like our very lack of knowing this, right, is what kept us in what we experienced as a losing position. Okay? I'm not saying we were in a losing position. It's just that explained those emotions, that something's wrong. Like I'm wrong, but I don't know why I'm wrong. I keep trying to work on myself, but this person's never happy, or whatever it is. It's like, that's ultimately what it is, okay? But I just want to encourage you, and you're probably in a position now where you see things differently. So this is going to probably just resonate with you already, but depending on where you are in your journey, I just want to say this, we can take heart, because I keep saying, and it's true, God always has the upper hand. Always, always. And remember, the Bible talks about, I think it's in Romans, chapter 8, where it says he uses all things for the good of those who love him, okay? So I'm going to stretch our minds for just a little bit here, okay? Let's think about kind of like, through the lens of, Newton's laws, right? So just thinking about reality in general, just, rational thinking, logical thinking, just observable laws of nature, okay? If everything has an equal and opposite nature, then let's take that logic and apply it here. We talk about life force a lot on my channel, okay? And I know that I think this might be a good place to bring up different cultures, how they define this. I think chi is one term that's used to define this, but there's essentially this life force that is what actually gets imprisoned when I say we go through this, sometimes these experiences for some time that place us in a situation of spiritual imprisonment. It's really like that life force that's blocked off, okay, that's held captive, okay. So when you're thinking about life force within us, all right, flowing versus being just stagnant, okay, stuck, just in a state of inertia, however you want to put it. What makes someone spring to life the quickest? Just a general logical question. All right, I want you to think about people who are just non-biased. They don't have an agenda. You might even think about like animals. Just take the people aspect out of it, because the human heart is so corrupt, and there's all these layers of consciousness, unconscious motives that come through people, whatever. Just take that element out. Just say animals, for example. What makes animals, like, what just really sparks that life force and just moves them in just a split second? What does that? A threat does that. Potential harm does that. Evil does that. It's the same with us. It's the same with us, okay? Think about, mama animals, whatever it is. A mama mountain lion, a mama bear, whatever. And if they feel like their children, their young, are being threatened, they're going to spring to life quicker than you can even blink, So, and, it's the same with us. A lot of people who experience what they call near-death experiences, they essentially, when they, if they are blessed enough to come back to life, they're going to realize, what a brush with death that was, and that in itself is going to make them realize how fragile and delicate and special life is, and that can snap a person, out of their stagnation, their state of stagnation, into just, being catapulted into, okay, I'm really going to live my life now. I'm not going to put these things off anymore that matter to me. It's like it just shifts your priorities around. It just springs you to life. So now I want you to think about the polarity of magnets, okay? If you have one sitting static, you have just this magnet on a counter, okay? Just total inertia, just sitting there. What will move it? What's going to make it move? It's when the opposite force gets near it. It's, you can just bring, if there's strong magnets, you can bring this other one up close to it, and you don't even have to touch, and it's going to start scooting away. If you've got the different ends of it, the positive and the negative, are facing. I'm sorry, positive and positive. I'm sorry. So it's still this other force. Now this is where it gets interesting. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Opposite forces. So the opposite forces are pulled together. Okay, and what's interesting is these are like two sides of the same thing, right? You have positive and negative on the same magnet. And so what draws the two together are the opposites, and then what repels is the same. And this is where, if you're in a healthy relationship, you can apply the Bible verse that iron sharpens iron, okay? Because a lot of times this is where you can bring in projection. It's not exclusive to people with bad intentions when you talk about psychological concepts like projection, because we all have this unconscious aspect to our psyche. So when you're in a healthy relationship, friendship, romantic partnership, whatever it is, a lot of times this other person's going to reflect back to us. This is where you have, like, if there's negative qualities in you, and then you have the negative side of this person, comes out and faces you, it's going to, make you pull away. And a lot of times we want to point our finger over here, but it's because it's hitting on something within us that needs to be worked out. So in that way, we can serve as a mirror to one another. And if we're strong enough and determined enough and committed enough, we will work through it together and grow because of it, right? So I just wanted to say that. But I want to say this too. You may have that intention, okay, in a partnership. This other person may not. This other person may be, which we're going to get into it here in just a minute, but may basically not have goodness in their heart, okay? They may just have really bad intentions. And so, but let's say hypothetically it's a person you're friends with, or it's your spouse, whatever. And so when this happens, because it's two sides, right, to the same coin or magnet, whatever, when this happens and there's this pushing away, it does prompt you to move. It prompts you to wake up to things that you were previously unaware of, or whatever it is, right? So it sparks that life force inside of you. But what happens is, this is where I'm talking about being out of balance in a relationship or a group or whatever. It's going to be painful to you. Sometimes only via emotions, because you can't make sense of it, right? Because this person they're not being truthful with you, and laying the truth out before you, so it's confusing to you. But you may be trying to work on things, and this other person's just saying, yeah, you should work on those things, instead of doing their part too, to rise with you, to grow and learn and rise with you and grow with you. You see what I'm saying? But that's what moves us. That's what moves us. Anytime there's a threat, there's harm, or there's this other force that is initially seen as polar opposite, where we can easily recognize the flaw in another first, like, oh, that's you, it would never be me, before we do the work and realize we have aspects too that we need to work on. You know what I mean? So yes, I just want to encourage you that God truly does work all things for the good of those who love Him. I do believe that, even though it's not easily identified in the moment for sure. But I know that I, at least, was catapulted into my awareness much the same way as what we were just talking about, okay? Now, the Bible in Matthew chapter 13, verses 16 and 17 says, this is interesting, blessed, I don't know if it's blessed or blessed, I don't know. Blessed sounds better here. So blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. So here we have it illustrated that there are people who desire to know things, but God doesn't always reveal things to people just because they want to know. Okay? So it's a great place in your healing, on your path, in your journey, where you get to the point of instead of being resentful and in this victimhood state, where you can transition over and come to truly a place of being grateful to the divine, to the Heavenly Father. And because you can see the blessing that was truly in disguise in your bad situation, because it woke you up. It woke you up. Okay? And I want to pause here and invite you to look back in your life just before this challenging time, this really challenging time in your life. Because when I do that, I was literally, I had moved into, a place on my own, away from my parents, and I had in my heart fully intended on getting closer with God. That was my intention. And I the way I viewed that, like how it would go, is not the way it went. But it still happened. See, I viewed it as just a lot of quiet, peaceful time, at home alone, just painting and, just, spending time with God in that manner. Okay. But my ultimate request and desire was to know God more fully. And so I put that request out there into the universe, you might say, right? And boy, it went to work. It happened in my life, but it didn't happen that way. So, yes. But like I was just reading in Matthew there, if we notice in those verses that we just read, desiring alone Is it enough to be granted spiritual sight and hearing, which is interesting to me, because many desire but won't receive. So if you think of us as vessels, I just encourage you to, through that lens, thinking of us as vessels, I encourage you to read the parable of the sower in the Bible, okay? Because it says that the enemy came and actually planted seeds amongst us, right? From the devil. That's heavy. That's a lot, okay? So, there were once people in our lives who knew more than you and I when we were just innocent and trusting, right? But again, because God always has the upper hand, always, okay? These people had no idea that we were actually sleeping giants. And here's what I mean by that, okay? You remember recently I had that jellyfish sting? When it happened, I started researching different kinds of jellyfish. And I came across this one that was beautiful. And when I saw it online, I thought, I've actually seen these wash up on the beach. It's called a man-o-war. And what's funny is it looks just like a jellyfish, but it's not. It's actually a colony. They call it a colony of these different organisms that come together and live as one. And it looks like a jellyfish. Isn't that amazing? So, we, talking about the seeds in the parable of the sower, the wheat and the tares, we are the seeds of the Father. And even though it's a lonely journey at times, even though we feel outnumbered at times, even though we're like, where are our people at times? I want to share with you Isaiah chapter 60, verse 22. It says, the smallest family will become 1,000 people, and the tiniest group will become a mighty nation. At the right time, I, the Lord, will make it happen. See, those of us who are seeds planted from the Father, we will grow in numbers as we surrender, as we repent, as we turn to God, right, and accept that spiritual inheritance, okay? Inheritance, rather. That's how we grow. That's how we grow in numbers. I do believe that there is a turning of the tide right now. I do believe that, it's interesting to consider the division of the wheat and the tares as a spiritual thing. It's really interesting because if you view it that way, it's almost like as people wake up, you can see this shift happening, that people are no longer just easily trusting and naive and asleep. I do believe that we're going to see the horizon in our lifetime, right? Horizon of this change. I really do. Okay. So, when you consider that our awakening came at God's appointed time, then we have to also consider that, what if everything up until that point was worked in a way by God's hand? I'm not saying He did it, that God inflicted the bad things on us, but just that because there are these other seeds that were strewn in amongst us and they're doing bad things and we are affected, I'm saying because of that, as being just a reality, part of our experience, human experience, it doesn't mean that God's hand is still not in the situation, right? Especially when we ask for it, especially when we ask. And we're not always going to see it immediately, but sometimes it's in hindsight, and sometimes it's undeniable, and it's supernatural, and it's statistically impossible, and other people may not even believe you if you share it with them, which is why we are warned against just casting our pearls amongst the swine. We're warned against that for that reason, okay? Because it says, lest they turn and trample them. You're going to be mocked if you share things that are like that. That you know what you know, what you know, what you know, but it's supernatural. It's not logical. It's beyond that. It's more than that, okay? You can have experiences like that if you haven't yet. I just want to encourage you that it is possible. Okay? I know for sure because I've lived it. But to consider that if our awakening did come at God's appointed time, then, I think it's totally logical and reasonable to say, well, then God must have had a hand in all this stuff that was going on in my life somehow, right? To ensure that we woke up at the appointed time. So there comes a point where we say, okay, I'm piecing this together, but now what? Okay? This is where I feel like, first of all, I just encourage you to ask God, because again, it says to knock before the door will be opened and to ask before it will be given to you. So there has to be that relationship, that open communication. And it doesn't have to be any certain way. In fact, the Bible says God doesn't even want like fancy words and stuff. When people pray for show and stuff like that, it's not genuine. So I just, I think that when you just approach God in the realest way, He knows you're being real. He knows if you're being real or not. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like, now what? I'm awake, and I can see a lot, and there's BS all around me. You know what I mean? So that gift of free will from God. The thing about that is this. The thing about that is a lot of us use our free will to act from our lower level desires in life. In other words, our limited human thinking without consulting God, essentially. So in that manner, we have to surrender it. We have to surrender it to this higher wisdom, okay? In order for there to be a higher vibration in our life, a higher way of living in our life. In order for that transition to happen, we have to surrender the lower, limited, flawed part of us over to God. You see what I'm saying? Because here's the thing. We're never going to be able to even perceive God's plan for our life if we are still desiring our plan for our life. It's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice and a surrender. You might even think of it like, for a long time I didn't understand this stuff in the Bible. It was weird. Just, looking back at the Old Testament and thinking of God as just this angry, bloodthirsty kind of, ruler or whatever. But if you look at it again symbolically, spiritually, right, through the spiritual lens, what we're talking about right this second, you might consider surrendering every morning on purpose. You're acknowledging your own limitations, your own blind spots within your limited human psyche. You're acknowledging that before God, and you're laying down or surrendering or willingly giving up this first fruit, right, every day, meaning fruit from here. Like, I think I want this, or I really, your desires or whatever. Just lay that down and say, you know what, that is what I want, God, but you know that already. He already knows. The Bible says He already knows, whether we voice it or not. So, again, I just encourage you to be real with God and be like, this is what I do. I say, well, Lord, you know what I really want. Right? As you know. But, if God has this grand plan for you, which the Bible talks about, okay? It says, I know the plans I have for you. Plans not to harm you, but to give you hope in the future. And I truly believe that what God could work out in our lives would be so much better for us, than anything we could ever construct in our life. Ever. Even if we had all the money in the world, all the resources, avenues, whatever, situations working out just right, God could still, trump that. He could still do better. Okay? It's weird to even say that word now, to trump that, because obviously it's a very popular name in politics now. But anyway, no association. Just came to mind. Just funny when you say things like that now, right? You guys probably know what I'm talking about. But how words kind of, shift their meaning over time, and have different associations and bring different things to mind. And that's a whole nother topic. We could just make a whole video about that, or video series really. But my point is, God could always do more for us than we could ever do for ourselves. So if we truly trust that, okay, it's really like a test every day, at moment to moment, a test of, do we trust God or not? You know, it's really, again, living from fear or faith. But just, we don't consciously realize it's fear-based when we're like, no, I got this. I'll make this happen. See? So faith says, yeah, I could make XYZ happen, but God could do more. So I just encourage you to lay these things before God in prayer and ask Him to show you things so that you can, you know, He may even put a vision in your mind. Like you may see just in a daydream like this, you know, if you ask a very specific question, He may put this image in your mind, and then you may see it in your life and know that that's from God. Or it may even just be a confirmation that He heard you and He's showing you that, you know, manifesting happens. It's a real thing. Whether you do it and then you suffer because you didn't bring Him into the equation and consult Him first, or whether, you know, whether you really did consult Him first and let Him work the magic, you know, without your, you know, attachment to your limited desires or whatever. So it's just some stuff to think about. I'm just trying to get you to think. I'm just trying to get the wheels turning. Okay, so you know, sometimes I think too that God, He knows how stubborn we are. Because we can be praying and praying for freedom. We can be in a really bad situation, oppressed, struggling, and God's like, you just won't let go of whatever it is you need to let go of. So sometimes He strips those things from us for our own good, you know, to bring us that spiritual relief, the spiritual freedom. So here's the great paradox. This is something else to think about. To be truly free is to be willingly yoked with God. But by doing so, you're willingly binding yourself to these guidelines set by God. Okay? Which doesn't logically seem like freedom, but it actually is, because He knows better. Okay, so Matthew chapter 11 verses 29 and 30 says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." I want to go back again and share with you once more Galatians chapter 5 verse 1. It says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." Okay? So I looked up the word yoke, which means to join. To join, or to join together. Okay? And the Proto-Indo-European root of that is yug, Y-E-U-G. So the Old English definition is a heavy burden, oppression, or servitude. So yoke, to be yoked with something, can be good or bad. It can bring you oppression or freedom. Okay? And so, of course, we're instructed in Joshua chapter 24, verse 15, says, "Choose this day whom you will serve." Again, I just encourage you every day to just, acknowledge, the things that are on your mind and heart, and, lay that before God. He already knows it anyway, but I think that He kind of make Him proud to be like, yes, you brought it to me. You brought it to me. You didn't have to, but you chose to. Now I'm going to show out in your life. You know what I mean? So, truth is under attack, okay? The lie is always, it goes back to the Garden of Eden. The lie is always, don't listen to what God said. You got this. You can do it by yourself. You can have it all figured out. Just eat this fruit. The trick, the lie is that it's just that easy for us to just handle things ourselves via our own judgment. That's the lie. That's the lie, okay? So the truth is under attack. But one day the tables will flip. And God is allowing the tares to grow alongside the wheat, okay? So in doing so, these people with bad intentions, okay, who have that seed from the devil in their hearts and minds, they think that they have the upper hand, okay? It stops, the elevation stops with them, right? And so we may have, been oppressed down here for some time by these people, but God works these circumstances. He wakes us up, and when He does, our view is now from up here, and we see what they're doing. We can see everything, okay? And so I just want you to be encouraged, okay? Because those of us who are truly awake know the ultimate outcome, okay? So I just encourage you to trust in God's plan, just overall, as well as for your life. Trust that He has a plan for your life. Trust that it's awesome, okay? And I just hope that you stay strong in your faith and believe it. So I hope that the message today has been enlightening, encouraging. I hope that it got the wheels turning, no matter what your beliefs. I hope that you are able to bring your own perspectives to all the topics discussed today, and I hope that it has benefited you in some way. And I just thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.